Hi, everyone. My name is David Yang. I'm the CEO of Fullstack Academy, and I'm really excited today to be talking with Veer Dadia. Veer is our lead cybersecurity instructor.
Hey everyone, I'm Veer, one of the founding instructors also with Fullstack Cyber Bootcamp, and currently the lead instructor, and here to talk about upcoming cyber threats for 2021. And one of the biggest cybersecurity threats last year, this year, next year, probably for many years to come, will be the lack of cybersecurity experts. It's why I joined Fullstack to help grow this program and grow the field of cybersecurity experts. Um, it's something that we've created this program to try and solve. Right. According to Cybersecurity Ventures, there's going to be 3.5 million cybersecurity jobs by next year. There's going to be a huge need for these experts that we're trying to train. Um, there's going to be a lot of other threats in 2021, and we believe that awareness about these threats and it will lead to actions that people can take to stay safe. Fullstack Cyber Bootcamp is asking the cyber world to contribute predictions to the greatest cyber threats that we'll face in 2021. And we're actually even promoting this challenge through the hashtag 2021 CyberCrime Challenge, and we've got a $2,000 scholarship. David, why are we doing this challenge and created the scholarship?
Well, thanks so much, Veer. It's October, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and some of our goals are: one, we want to amplify the voices of cyber experts in our community to raise awareness, right? I think we're generally increasingly aware of the danger of cybersecurity threats, but really give people a way to connect to experts and understand what's going on, and what we have to get ready for in 2021. Second thing is we really want to help cybersecurity beginners connect on social media, and inside the cybersecurity industry, networking on social media, getting your voice heard and your name recognized are really great ways to build relationships that lead to valuable career connections and even jobs that we've seen. So our scholarship here is $2,000 incentive for really students just get involved in the cyber security online social community.
Yeah. To just cover some of the details of that scholarship, anyone who's applied or will be applying for the upcoming full-time cyber cohorts, this is for New York City, will receive those scholarships if they're accepted and they complete the form on our blog to answer that question: what is the greatest cybersecurity threat for 2021? All right, the deadline for that application is November 23rd, and you can find the links to our blog for more details.
So, Veer, what I'd love to go through is get your thoughts on what what we think are possibly the 5 top threats, and what can be done about trying to mitigate the risk of those threats. We'll go through them one by one. As a quick outline, we have kind of the continued evolution of ransomware strategies. We have the Internet of Things and attacks on those on those things. The evolution of deepfakes, physical attacks on autonomous vehicles, and the shortage of cybersecurity professionals. So let's start with the evolution of ransomware. What do you think is going? Ransomware. Maybe you can start with the definition, and then what's happening in 2021 that's making it more an increasing threat.
Yeah, so this is probably the threat that people know about the most because of the news, right? Ransomware, it's a type of malicious software that will encrypt your computer. What does that mean? It'll basically lock up all of the victim's files and their computer and present a screen saying, "Pay us some money and we'll give you back your data." Right? It typically makes your computer completely unusable until you pay off the ransom. Right? So hence the name ransomware. And we've seen this hitting major companies around the world. We've seen this hitting governments, schools, hospitals. This has really been in the news a lot in the past already.
So the idea is that let's say I'm running a large hospital. All that has to happen is this ransomware comes into my network and starts locking up my computers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all my employees, the doctors, nurses, everybody, all they see is a screen that says, "You have to pay us to get your computers back."
Exactly. Yeah, all of their work stops, um, and usually ransomware will hit. It won't really go one at a time. It'll actually spread silently. Let's say through that whole hospital, and then 2 days later, every single computer will suddenly lock up over the span of a few hours.
And what are the different ways that ransomware gets into the network?
There's a lot of different ways. Some of the major ways are phishing, people clicking on links accidentally, installing software that shouldn't be installed. Those are usually the major ways that it gets in the first time. But once it's in the network, it can spread pretty easily, right? We've seen lots of different vulnerabilities that they'll take advantage of. Whatever happens to be the major vulnerability of the day, or even looking back to really old vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and then I think it can't go without mentioning that because of I wouldn't say or because of anonymous cryptocurrencies like with Bitcoin and Ethereum, the way I guess one old reason these were weak is because at some point you have to if you send money somewhere into the financial system it can be tracked, right? But now with Bitcoin you can demand money to a anonymous wallet and then you know very hard to track down who owns that wallet or where that wallet
Yeah, yeah, we
where that money
really
goes.
saw. So yeah, we really saw ransomware take off with the advent of Bitcoin. So that was historically. Nowadays, we'll see ransomware operators will even have like very detailed instructions on here's how you can buy the Bitcoin, here's how you can go to your nearest Bitcoin exchange in person, if there is one near you. They'll offer technical support on how you can pay them properly.
So you can literally call a phone number and get technical support on how to get your computer unlocked.
Yeah, yeah, a
It's
lot
funny
of
they have like an onboarding process for unransoming your computers. That's
yeah. They
both
they have
terrible and funny.
sometimes better customer support than other places.
That's true. I can totally. I mean, not to pick on any company, but I can totally imagine like you have two technical support numbers: the ransomware one and like your Microsoft help desk. And Microsoft is actually you can't get through to the number. Um, what do you think about the? Of course, we have the election coming up in a couple of days. Are there any concerns about ransomware affecting the election or impacting kind of the U.S. election here?
Yeah, so the evidence is still unclear. We've seen some impact in the past on government systems. We haven't necessarily seen as much ransomware directly targeting the voting systems right now, but I definitely anticipate that they'll be trying, right? Trying to disable voting registrations, trying to disable sort of tallying and reporting, attacking a lot of the systems that work around the election. Um, a lot of experts are saying that the election machines themselves are fairly difficult to compromise, kind of isolated from networks. We've seen definitely mixed reports on that. It's definitely something that I've seen as a weaker target to hit, just because it's less interesting for an attacker to target the machine that you're going to be voting on rather than targeting the people who are going to be counting those votes. That's a
Interesting.
lot easier of a target.
Yeah, to compromise, you're saying when you're at the ballot, you're at the machine. That thing probably comes out with the right printout and connects the information back to the polling center correctly. But affecting those polling center machines or even how those communicate up the chain, however that happens, is a more fruitful attack possibly for them to if you want to call it sow chaos or
Yeah, exactly.
all right, very interesting. Yeah, ransomware is something that I think continues to be there's it's kind of like spam, right? There's just too much money in it for it to go away, and it'll be an ever escalating arms race between the hackers and companies trying to run systems. I'd like to move on to Internet of Things. I think this has gotten Internet of Things, of course, has gotten a lot of press over the last decade. I mean, we can all look around our houses. We have, voice control devices, cameras, pet cameras, all kinds of devices around. What are these increasing number of devices? How are they jeopardizing cybersecurity, both on an individual and corporate basis?
Yeah, so let's take a step back and actually talk to people about the definition there. So the connected devices, like you said, pet cameras, baby monitors, all of these different devices. It's anything that's connected to the internet. In the hacker community, the fun joke that we like to say is that IoT stands for other people's computers in your home. All right, it's someone else's control. And we've seen what happens with IoT devices are large botnets. So what will happen is that they'll be insecurely built. People who are building IoT are not always concerned with security up front. So there's hard-coded passwords. There's insecure or outdated software on a lot of these. There's not really good ways to update IoT or patch IoT. We always say for example, with ransomware, the major advice is keep your systems updated. With IoT, how do you know how to update your teapot? I mean, yeah. it's such a different realm, and people are not used to saying, oh, I need to put a software update on my fridge or my different device. So it's really hard to change especially once those vulnerabilities are out there. Right?
I mean, I think everyone can resonate with the feeling of you open up your router and then they give you a little card that says your default password is admin, and then how many people have actually updated the firmware on their router, right? And it's like if you've never done that, then your router is most likely exposed to several security issues. In fact, I think there is a major attack going on right now on the internet with certain types of routers, because it is hard to update. I'm curious, like, why do you think there hasn't been that investment in IoT security, in better infrastructure around upgrading firmware, I mean, even to this day, I still worry about the possibility of ruining my router in a firmware upgrade, right? Do you think it's just a fundamentally hard problem, or do you think that companies just aren't? There's no incentive really to fix this problem.
I think there's a couple of reasons. So first, on the front end, there's the cost, right? There's the initial cost of putting security into these devices, and especially with IoT, a lot of these companies are trying to get first to market. And the first person on the market, the first IoT device that you hear about, that's the one you're going to buy. And so security becomes sort of an afterthought, essentially, because it just slows down getting to market. And it actually costs, right? You have to pay people to think about security. You have to make sure you bake that in. And so just the upfront costs are, in my opinion, the first barrier to getting security into IoT. Now, one of the second things that I think is a really major reason that IoT doesn't have as much security is just the longevity of these devices. We'll have a specific device for many years in a place that's hard to update. It's
low bandwidth.
Yeah, low bandwidth. The devices, the chips that are on these devices are going to be very different from the chips that are in our computers, our laptops, our phones. They're getting better nowadays, and actually there's some people working on IoT security, but that's not going to affect all of the old devices that are out there, right? That's only going to affect the new devices, and so just that longevity.
Where you can see all open devices on the internet. Are they try to audit open devices? It starts with an S. Can't remember.
Yeah, Shodan.io.
Yeah, I definitely recommend people check that out. It just has open webcams, open routers that they've discovered just through scanning networks.
Yeah, they continuously scan the internet, and it's kind of scary how many internet connected security cameras you can tap into and just watch online.
All right, let's move on to the next one. This one I find particularly fascinating because it's the convergence of artificial intelligence, of cutting edge artificial intelligence and deep learning, or I guess style transfer learning, with security threats, and that's deep fakes, right? So deep fakes, my understanding is using deep learning and style transfer to generate, for example, you could generate a video of a celebrity talking, generate their voice and make them say whatever you want to say. And these fakes are very convincing because they're generated using kind of cutting edge artificial intelligence technology. So I'm curious, where are we in that technology capability, and what are the concerns that might enable?
The technology is scary. It's very scary. Is learning about recently how researchers have created a fake lunar crash landing speech by the president, right? And this was going back in time, finding the text of a speech that was never delivered, creating the audio for that in one process, then going back and finding video of the president sort of giving other speeches, merging that with an actor who's giving this current speech and doing the video connection. And they showed this to people, and people really couldn't tell the difference. There's very small artifacts these days, especially if you put a lot of time and effort into making these deepfakes, where it's scary. It's scary how strong you can make these videos and how convincing you can make them.
Yeah, no, I think that it is. I mean, for people who kind of aren't maybe have never seen it, it's like your voice generates a signal, and your face, all the points in your face generate a signal, and you can imagine the points on a face of, let's say, the president have the same points, right? If you just morph my points in my face to that points, and morph my voice to how his voice would sound, you can almost in real time generate another video that looks very convincing of somebody else talking and saying something. And I think it goes connected with our almost instantaneous social media world. What's that saying? A lie can get around the world before truth has put its pants on, right? And so you can really, really create, like you're saying, convince people if something has happened very easily using this deepfake technology. And we'll see, I think, the combination of deepfakes, along with, and not ransomware, but like, for example, one attack that's probably not gotten as much press, but happened a lot, is people calling employees and saying, hey, this is the CEO, I need this wire to this company immediately, right? And those don't look very convincing right now, because if you get called and this person has an accent, it's from a different country. But if they're using deepfake technology to simulate the CEO's actual voice, maybe even a video call, a Zoom call, like you can imagine you're on a Zoom call with a deepfake of your CEO of your company, his voice sounds right, his picture looks right, that's going to be very hard to authenticate. What do you think are ways that we might authenticate that this video is real, this was generated? Because even live is not a solution anymore.
Yeah, and I want to take a step back and actually address what you were just talking about. The phishing scams using this technology, we've actually seen that, right? We've already seen that in the wild. There are some news stories about phishing scams, mostly using audio,
Okay.
where people will get those phone calls exactly like you described. So it's here. It's really here. And I think just to address that point, I mean, if I get a call from someone and they're saying, hey, this is David, I need you to do something. The major thing that I'm going to be checking is am I feeling emotional? Because as soon as I am, that's sort of the number one tactic for these scammers is to try and get your emotions high and keep you hostage in that high emotional state. So thinking through, okay, am I feeling pressured? Yes, I can't make any decisions. I can't choose to send money anywhere. It's not going to be something that I can do. And then two, try and contact you in a different way. So I have your
two-factor authentication.
Exactly. I have your email, I have your phone number, I have some other way to contact you. Um, and so I'm going to say, hey, David, did you just make this request? Could you verify that this is exactly what you want? And that will stop a lot of these sorts of phishing scams, right? Just stopping any sort of actions when you feel that pressure, and second, doing that, like you said, human two-factor authentication.
Yeah, I think that's something that it'll be interesting to see how companies think about training, because it really is. It slows everything down for sure, right? To authenticate everything in two channels, but it's something that increasingly I think we're going to need to think about.
Yeah, and to get to your other question of how can we start verifying these videos, I think there are a lot of experts who are working on this. There's sort of video forensic experts.
Hmm.
The I think the major problem is that this, like you said, right, the lie will spread around the world, and the truth will be putting its pants on. Um, and it takes time. It takes time for those forensics experts to look at these videos and see the evidence of, okay, there's some hallmarks of the fact that these were created by artificial intelligence. Um, and I think one of the reasons that this is on our list of the biggest threats of next year is because as we keep playing with this technology, it just gets better. It's only going to get better into next year.
I mean, I think what scares me is that um, people are generating these deepfakes using nothing more than probably a mid-size gaming computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can imagine like what a state level actor who's incentivized to make a really good one could put to what kind of power they could put to bear on this problem, right? It's like if you can, with an NVIDIA GTX 2060, you can make one, a country with, teraflops of computing power, they could do, they could just make something incredible.
Yeah.
All right, the next thing I'd love to, especially with the news around the new Tesla autonomous vehicle, I think our fourth security concern was attacks on autonomous vehicles. What is the new Tesla full self-driving beta? What is how should people think about the safety of these modern cars, right? Are they, similar to what we're talking about Internet of Things, right? Cars now it's a car. I think it's almost like it's a networked computing platform with wheels that you sit in, right? So what does that create as an attack vector? What do you think the types of attacks that we're going to see going forward?
Yeah, that description of our modern cars is very accurate, and we really do need to start thinking about cars in that way, that they are computers on wheels and not cars that sometimes have intelligence inside of them. Um, and so, just like all of the same measures of protecting our computer, we have to update them. We have to make sure that we're keeping them secure and not doing sort of random things or clicking and downloading random apps onto our cars, just like we do on our computers. In terms of attack surfaces, we've seen over the past years, as people have been experimenting with this, we've definitely seen different types of attacks. I think that as we move into next year, more and more of the car systems are connected with that computer. More and more of them are connected to cellular networks or internet networks in different ways, right? So people have different features to receive the internet, or to have like maybe a Wi-Fi hotspot within your car, things like that over the cell networks. Um, and it really does open the door to both in-person hacking. So a lot of hackers have actually shown how, if I have physical access to your car, I can plug devices in and take over all of the systems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's everything, right? The steering, the brakes, the air conditioning, the actual audio systems, entertainment systems, everything in the car, it's all connected, right? The driving train and the entertainment. And because we're moving more and more of these online, we're starting to also be vulnerable to some of the attacks that have been demonstrated as remote attacks. So I over here can sort of connect to your car that's driving on the highway, and as it's driving on the highway, control exactly the same systems that I was talking about.
So the movie scene where a hacker's in a room, the satellite picture controls a car, drives it off the road. You're saying it's not science fiction anymore. It's starting to become more a possibility of. I think one thing that people, like you're saying, that mental model of a car is that we always think of a car as a mechanical set of systems, right? Like a rack and pinion system, where you control the steering, the brakes having a wire to the actual disc brakes, and then we probably think the entertainment system, the CD player, is on a separate system. And I think one thing you're saying that those systems are merging together into one centralized computer, right? Whereas if your power steering is actually going to a computer that's controlling a thing rather than directly being mechanically. I think that gives us a sense of safety of there's an air gap between the technology and the mechanics, but that's slowly merging. Why do you think car manufacturers are doing that? What are the benefits of?
Yeah, I think it's easier. It's easier to have everything on the same hub, essentially, right? So all of the components are all on the same network. They can talk to each other, right? The entertainment system can send signals back and forth. We can display sort of the status of different systems on the displays, which is kind of cool.
It's true. If everyone who's ever been in a Prius and you see the energy flowing back from the wheels, right? For that system to show that, you have to have the sensors
Yeah.
integrated.
So there's some monitoring going on, but I definitely think that there hasn't been as much thought put into how do we separate those systems, or how do we put blocks so that if I plug my phone into the USB port, I shouldn't have access to your brake controls. And like you said, all of those systems are slowly becoming more and more disconnected from the mechanical. Right? So pressing the brakes doesn't actually control the wires anymore. Pressing the brakes in a lot of modern cars sends a signal to the computer to change the discs. And a lot of systems are moving away from I control the mechanics myself to I send a signal to a computer that controls the mechanical aspects.
It's scary. All right, I think the fifth thing I want to talk about is the shortage of cybersecurity professionals. Right? What is the scale of this shortage, and how should companies be thinking about this?
So going into next year, we've got 3.5 million cyber jobs open over the next year, and this is reported by other experts who have been trying to predict these sorts of job openings. And I think the scale of that is just so large. Right? These are new or open jobs. Right? I don't think there's ever been a time in cybersecurity where I've been able to say we're done. We've met the need for security professionals. And I think that if you talk to any cybersecurity professional, they'll say the same thing, where there's always more need. We've got a
race mechanic, right?
Yeah,
it's always more entry points, because always and consumers and businesses want more things to be able to possible, right? They want you to be able to do this thing on your phone. They want you to be able to connect via your fridge or whatever, right? So there's more entry points because people want them, and then that creates more places for security to be vulnerable.
Yeah, and I'll add that when security is done right, nothing happens. And so it's really hard to see security professionals doing a good job. I think that's led to a lot of where companies in the past haven't put value on that. And only in the last few years, I mean, this year we saw the chief of security from Uber be personally indicted, right, for the security breaches. That was only recently. And so I think that as we move into next year, companies are realizing that this needs to be a focus. right? Cybersecurity is a big deal. We've seen over the last few years, like banks like JP Morgan Chase have devoted millions of dollars into growing their security teams. And I think that's only going to increase as we move into next year. It's only something that we're starting to solve. And this is really where Fullstack Cyber is also, we've stepped in to try and train more and more people to get into this industry.
All right, Veer, so we've listed kind of our 5 security risks. I'm curious if there's anything else on your mind, anything else that you think about as a security expert.
There's too many to list, David. I think sticking to the 5 is pretty good. There's always the major, like, make sure you're not downloading things that you don't know about, or man, if you ask me this question, I'll go on and on for days. So I'm going to stop myself here and just point people back to the blog, saying, take a look at our list of 5 top threats that we think are coming up.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Veer, and thanks for going through those 5 things. It's fascinating. Kind of makes me want to go and update all my IoT things right now. So.
Yeah, if you could even figure out how to do it.
Yeah. It's funny. Recently, I just updated the firmware in my the printer behind me to support AirPrint. And in the update notes, there was like a bunch of security patches. I was like, oh no, this whole time I've been exposed through my printer.
Yeah, we actually saw that as a really funny hack that happened a couple of years ago. That was where some fans of different YouTubers hacked printers all over the world, printing out messages to subscribe to them.
It's funny.
So there's threats all over. Yeah, and we've mentioned, I think the top threat that I want to highlight again is just that lack of cybersecurity experts. Right, it's that huge risk for the upcoming years. And as a closing message, if you're watching this video and you're interested in making a career out of keeping the world safe, I think this is the most compelling career to go into. It's very interesting, and it's always changing and evolving and keeping you sharp. Come and check out our bootcamp. Our website is cyber.fullstackacademy.com. And I want to just close with that, a reminder of the full-time scholarship. So if you apply to our New York City full-time programs, anyone who's already applied, even if you've already put in that application, or if you're thinking about it soon, you can complete that form on our blog to apply for the scholarship. Answer that question. What's the greatest cybersecurity threat that you see for 2021? Put in that application. I'd love to see those and read some of those myself by November 23rd.
All right. Thank you all. Really appreciate your time, Veer, and hope this is enlightening to all of you and not too scary.
We'll be part of the solution.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Veer.
All right. Thanks, David.